And I'm gonna start the recording if that is okay with everybody.
Mhm.
Oops. Lots of people still coming in.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay,
Okay, we'll start.
I think we're good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Laura Weiner. I'm one of the members of the Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee. And this is the first community forum we've had on since the committee was formed. Um, Next slide. We'd like to introduce ourselves to you. So this is a committee that was formed and town meeting last spring and by a warrant article that had a very specific makeup of the committee where each member represents an interested party in affordable housing. So I represent the Housing Corporation of Arlington, of which I'm a longtime board member. Carol Kowalski is representing the Arlington Redevelopment Board. David Pretzer is representing the Select Board. Maxwell Palmer was appointed by the town meeting moderator. Beth Elliott is representing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, of which she is a member. Fiorella Badia is a tenant at the Arlington Housing Authority and represents them. And Sarah Suarez is representing the Department of Planning and Community Development, and she is Assistant Director there. Next slide. This is the town meeting article that created us. I have to move my. Um, it was a fairly short and straightforward warrant article, just forming the committee. This is actually the second attempt to put together an affordable housing overlay committee, overlay district rather. And last year it did not go forward. It was withdrawn before town meeting, and so this was a follow-up on that to make a second try with the support of town meeting to come to to create a zoning bylaw amendment that would come to town meeting in the next session. Next slide. It's been about 5 years of discussion about this type of zoning bylaw. In 2020, town meeting voted to establish the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board to support low and moderate income housing in Arlington. So we now have a town body that supports affordable housing. In 2022, the Select Board unanimously approved an Affordable Housing Trust 5-year action plan, which included as one of its recommendations, a predictable permitting scheme for affordable housing. In 2023, town meeting passed a resolution in support of an affordable housing overlay district. And in 2025, town meeting passed Article 41 to establish this committee. And this is that was the language to study and prepare a zoning amendment.
Sorry.
That's okay. The one time I didn't say it. Okay, so what is an overlay district? An overlay district is a set of zoning regulations that get superimposed upon a set of properties, and they provide an alternative zoning for those properties. The landowner has the choice to meet either set of zoning requirements. So they can either meet the zoning that is now on the site, or they can meet a different set of criteria if they develop affordable housing. Overlay zones are used to promote a variety of different things, including affordable housing, but the MBTA community zoning is also an overlay where the owner has a choice of which zoning scheme to stay within. Um, this is not about the town buying land or developing affordable housing itself. It's for privately owned property, and it gives developers of affordable housing a little bit of a leg up to acquire land so that they can compete with the private market. Next slide.
Well, I think this is where it transitions over to me, Laura.
Yes.
I can pick up from here.
Yes.
So we're going to pause the zoning talk for a minute and talk about affordable housing financing, because that how affordable housing gets financed plays a big role in how we're thinking about the zoning overlay that might be needed. So I want to differentiate between financing affordable units, so a few units of affordable housing in an otherwise market rate development, versus financing affordable developments where 100% of the units in that development are affordable at various income levels. So Arlington benefits from two laws that are designed to produce affordable units. They're designed to leverage kind of cross subsidization from the market units to build the affordable units. One way that's been in place for a very long time is the comprehensive permit law, or 40B. That requires 20% of the units to be affordable, and there's no other subsidy required under the zoning law. Assume that the cost of the market rate units will cross subsidize for those zoning units, those affordable units. And the inclusionary zoning bylaw that got passed by town meeting just a few years ago works on the same principle. There's a small number. Oh, thank you, Carl. 25 units in 40B. I think that may be right.
Yes.
They're affordable at 80% of AMI, right? The other piece is the Arlington's inclusionary zoning bylaw, which requires essentially one affordable unit for every 6 market rate units that are built. And again, the idea here is that you're relying on the cost, the income realized on the market rate units to kind of cross subsidize the affordable units. Combined, these have produced some affordable units, and the number of units has increased slightly over the last few years as we've had some more 40B developments come online. But usually you're looking at, 3 or 4 units per year has been the average over the last 40 years. Next slide. So what happens when you want to do 100% affordable? How do you get an entire development built with rents restricted to only the amount that a low-income family can pay? And the fundamental problem that affordable housing developers have to solve in states like Massachusetts is that keeping rents low enough to be affordable to low-income families means that the housing alone can't generate enough income to cover the costs of creating it. People call this, what's the gap, is what affordable housing developers will say. If you have a building with 50 units and the rents can only support a mortgage of $10 million, but it's going to cost you $30 million to build that building, you have a $20 million problem in that you don't have enough money to build the building at the rents that people could afford. And this gets more difficult by this, the smaller the development, the higher the cost per unit, because you can't pass across the cost of infrastructure like the heating or the building envelope, the elevators. You can't spread that along numbers, a lot of units. Next slide, please. So what really makes affordable housing possible is the federal low-income housing tax credit. And federal tax credits are really what make affordable housing development possible. The low-income housing tax credit is the largest federal subsidy for housing. Approximately $10.5 billion in annual budget authority for federal tax credits. Massachusetts gets a portion of that. Each state gets allocated a certain amount of those tax credits. And then Massachusetts decides as a state which projects it's going to give those tax credits to. And affordable housing tax credits in the state of Massachusetts produce on average about 3,000 units of affordable housing a year. Next slide, please. In exchange for the federal tax credits that the developments get, the public policy driver behind LIHTC is that you get these really deep affordability restrictions. So the entire development must be legally restricted as affordable housing for at least 30 years. They have to serve families from extremely low-income families, which is, there's a lot of jargon here. People talk about area median income. But you could say it goes everywhere from people coming out of homelessness with essentially no income to lower income families where you may have, a family with one wage earner on a minimum wage job who's trying to support, a family. So they average, LIHTC developments have to average to 60% of area median income. And Massachusetts has chosen with its tax credits to require an additional 10% for those extremely low income families, those families like the folks coming out of homelessness who, essentially have very little or no income. Next slide, please. So the low-income housing tax credit, excuse me, I'm sorry. The deals themselves are pretty complicated because essentially what happens is the way the tax credits work is that the development receives the tax credits and then investors in the developments are able to claim those tax credits to reduce their own tax liability over a course of 10 years. So what the investors get out of it is lowering their tax bill, pretty much a dollar for dollar basis with the credit lowers their tax bill. And they are really, in order to make a tax credit deal worthwhile, because their tax credits are based on the size and the cost of the affordable building, they only get tax credits based on the cost to build the affordable units. So in order to make the investment worth their while, LIHTC projects usually have about 30 or more units. Developments that are smaller than that, there's kind of the transaction costs of doing the deal are too high. The return to the investor isn't good enough. So they're just not going to put their money into deals that are smaller than that. Another thing to note is that because they get their tax credits based on the cost of building just the affordable part of the building, they don't get tax credits for market rate units, and they don't get tax credits for commercial development. Essentially means that they're not going to pay for those things. They're not going to pay for the market rate units, and they're not going to put in tax credit equity to build commercial units. The other tricky thing about commercial development in low-income housing tax credit projects is that the housing agencies that finance affordable housing, they're housing agencies, they're not commercial lending institutions, and they're very conservative and won't generally underwrite, or they won't give developers credit for those commercial units in terms of how much income they think the project will support. So doing commercial can be done in LIHTC projects, but it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult, especially in the current market environment where there's a lot of available commercial space that doesn't need to be built. The other thing about LIHTC projects is because it's a federal program, but the state decides how it's run. And Massachusetts has decided essentially that it wants to put its tax credits into buildings that meet very high environmental and sustainability standards. So that is another project feature, just like Massachusetts requires the extra 10% of very low income units. Massachusetts also requires a very high environmental standard. Because cost to build in Massachusetts is so high, and the federal low-income housing tax credit program is really the only way that you're going to get a new development of affordable housing, 100% affordable, built. The competition for tax credits is very, very fierce. Developers will often apply for tax credits in several funding rounds, and each funding round may be, once every 6 months or once every year. They often have to apply several times before they are able to get a tax credit award. And one of the things that that gets taken into account in the competition for these credits is whether or not you have a clear zoning path. The Commonwealth is not going to award credits to a project that doesn't have a path to get zoning approval in the town where it's going to be built. Next slide. Oh, this one is back over to Carol, I believe.
Thank you so much, Beth. Those fundamentals of affordable housing finance are really key to this zoning, and it's really great that everyone was here to hear this and learn this who didn't already know about this kind of affordable housing finance, because we so often hear dismay from our neighbors and from the public when another market rate project comes in because the rents are so high. And this is why the fundamentals that Beth just presented are so critical to this particular zoning proposal. So we took a look. If you take a look at, if you average 5 one-bedroom rents in conventional market rate apartments in Arlington, the 5 I looked at averaged out to $3,298 per month, and you'd need a household income of $120,000 to afford one of those medium bedrooms in Arlington. Slide, please. If you look at the other side, which if you were looking at a 1-bedroom subsidized housing income limit at 60% of the area median, a 1-person household would need 69,480, or a 2-person household would need 79,000. So you might think that's not a lot of money, but let's take a look at the next slide to see who in Arlington earns in that area. And it's, for example, Arlington Public School teachers. This is an excerpt from the salary table that's on the Arlington Public Schools website. And if you have a BA and 15 credits and you're 4 or 5 steps into the salary table, you're still in an income level where you would qualify for a 1-bedroom subsidized apartment. So it gives you an idea about the kind of employment and the kind of residence that we would be able to provide for with this type of housing. Next slide, please. So we want to talk a little bit about the approach the committee has taken so far. And though there have been no votes on these yet necessarily, I don't recall, we're leaning to 100% affordable for the reasons that Beth described. We're also leaning to 100% residential, where we would recommend allowing mixed use, but certainly not requiring it. We also looked at sites, and we're going to recommend sites suited for LIHTC scale building, meaning something that could support 30 or more units, a building with 30 or more units. We also want to locate it where we, to the best of our ability, will limit the need for demolishing existing residential units. We don't want to have a zoning bylaw that will induce tear downs of what we've already got if we can help it. We also, to the extent we can, we want it near transit, schools, stores, and services, so that we can kind of reduce the need for to own and operate a car if we can. We also don't want to overlook large or open sites in town. And we want this to be an alternative to 40Bs if possible, and to just an alternative to owners instead of necessarily always having a a large single family home. Next slide, please. So how did we do it? How do we choose this initial, we've got some sites we're looking at, and we went about it as though we put on light tech developer glasses and we thought, what are we going to, we broke up into pairs of 2 people each for scouting parties. And we scoured maps. We looked, a few of us have had a lot of experience. I'm the former town planner, a few town planners ago. And Laura Weiner was also on the town, she was the assistant planning director many years ago. And we took a look at some old plans and recent plans, the housing production plan, because there are a lot of sites therein that have been considered or recommended for potential affordable housing. So we went in different areas of town and came up with some in north, south, east, west, central, an area that we call walking distance from Stop and Shop and Audison. And we also recommend that all of the Arlington Housing Authority land owned by the Housing Authority also be in this proposed light tech supporting affordable housing overlay district. Next slide, please. So one of the areas is the north, and it's about 3 sites. And this is not a definitive list. We are still hoping to find and add additional suitable sites. So if you think there's something that we shouldn't overlook, we're very interested in knowing about that. There's a site on Washington Street near on the Turkey Hill bus that is owned by Boston Gas. The Winchester Savings Bank near the Rotary on the way to Medford on Route 60 has been cited previously, and we do think that should be considered. And surprisingly, Winchester Country Club, that is also on a bus route. And you might say, Winchester Country Club, they will never, ever be anything but a country club. And that's quite possible. But we want to be able to allow this to be considered there if they ever woke up one day or we ever woke up one day and found out that they're inclined to sell part of Winchester Country Club to an affordable housing developer or someone else who would want to do this. And it's not too far-fetched, as I'll get to in a moment. Let's look at the next slide, please. And in the south, there are also 3 sites where recommending St. Paul's Lutheran Church, which is at the bottom here. The church is just to the right, and this is the parking area. To the right is Belmont Country Club. I mentioned Winchester Country Club. Well, Belmont Country Club has a chunk in the border of Arlington, and in 2016, they sold some of their land to the Lexington Montessori School, and then sold in 2018 some of their land to National Development, and they developed the Waterstone and Bridges development that you can see from Route 2. So it's not out of the question. Doesn't happen very often, but we want to be able to take advantage of it and provide that option if that were to ever happen in the future. And also St. Camillus, which has been talked about for decades as a potential area for affordable housing in different reports. And I think the next one is, if you go to the next slide, I think Maxwell and possibly Laura will talk about these. Am I
Sure.
right?
So we saw some different sites in East Arlington that could potentially work or to be included in the district as well. The Lions Fuel, Arlington Transmission Building, Trinity Baptist Church on Mass Ave has a large lot there, as well as that parking lot on the rear of 33 Broadway, and the Walgreens lot as well on Mass Ave.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Maxwell. So in the west, there's a couple sites. One is the former youth villages. That's the Order of St. Anne. It's a number of different parcels together, and we're not recommending or considering all of the parcels there, but some of them. as well as the Park Avenue Congregational Church. Next slide, please. And I think that Sarah or Beth will take this one.
I can start. This is stomping grounds for me. I live on Highland, so this is right near where we are, and so this is what's often referred to as the bank block, that row of kind of low bank buildings right across from the high school. There's also the American Legion Post, the Russell Commons lot, and I think that's been on a few different plans. Sarah, did you want to speak more to any of these?
Well, I mean, the Russell Common lot is the town parking lot in the center of town. It's a 1.5 acre parcel that has been identified for years and years and years as a site to explore the possibility of development. The property on the at the top of your screen is there's a little gray building. It's the American Legion building on Mass Ave, getting closer to the center, coming from East Arlington. And next to it is a 12-unit office condominium building that has been vacant for quite some time. So there has been some discussion about, possible possible housing development going there, in the future, down the road, if possible. And there are some other, potential sites that I've heard from, just from property owners who are actually asking, that own property, that are asking to be considered to be included in that, so that they have an opportunity in the future to potentially do something.
Thanks. And I want to add that when we talk about these sites, some of which just there are vehicle storage garages, there's parking lots, there's open land, there are churches. When we talk about the parking lots on that you're hearing about tonight, we're not talking about eliminating the parking, but having development over the parking at grade, the way, for example, the Brigham Square apartments were done, and I think people are familiar with that kind of parking at grade with residential above. So could we go to the next slide, please? And David is going to talk about this if you
Yeah.
are.
So this is the area that I call Brettle Square. It's between Arlington Center and Arlington Heights. And currently there's some sites that are currently either parking lots or sort of like less walkable commercial sites that we were thinking could make sense to include. There being along Mass Ave where the 77 bus is, and near the Addison Middle School and grocery store and various facilities could have some advantages. This includes the RCN parking lot, a large parking lot near the high school, or not far from the high school. And then the Greater Boston Motorsports is a somewhat tall commercial building near a lot of residential and near the middle school. There's also the Marac land. There's a lot of car lot and industrial land there, some of which was recently redeveloped into a 40B building that was mostly market with some affordable. And if the landowners there were interested, there'd be a lot of potential to develop additional housing in that vicinity. There are also some industrial parcels along Dudley Street in this area that could, then in an industrial area that already has some housing that could have potential as housing as well that are near the bike path. Thank you.
So some additional considerations are none of the sites we're currently thinking of are in the B3 or the B5 zoning districts, the major commercial centers, which we think will be. We didn't think it necessary because we didn't, we have a number of other locations, but we also think that we want to be able to make a recommendation to the redevelopment board that they will support. And I think that help them support it if we don't propose this in the major commercial centers. We also, without this zoning, land zoned in R0 or R1 could only become large single-family homes. We also want to note that most affordable housing developers pay taxes. Some people think, well, if it's all affordable, it must be, how can they pay taxes? Well, most of them do. So we want to make sure that that's clear. And we also want to remind ourselves and everyone else that in Arlington, we have what's called a uniform tax rate. That means that commercial and residential properties pay the same rate. So by adding residential properties, we're not shifting. And it's also important to bear in mind that new construction is assessed higher than older buildings, irrespective of the use. And that comes in comes in handy when we know that new construction begins to contribute to new levy growth, new tax growth. The first year it's under construction, and large multifamily buildings can take 2 years. 882 Mass Ave, for example, was under construction for 2 years. So that was already paying into our tax base for 2 years before a certificate of occupancy, before people moved in. So I think that's important to remember too. And except for large, I'm a professional planner. I've been a planner for many, many years, and I supervise economic development staff and so on. And except for in this region, except for large master planned single owner districts, like Third Ave in Burlington or the district in Burlington, there isn't a lot of demand, market demand for commercial development construction, except self-storage, distribution centers, and data centers. There is demand and need for reasonably priced commercial space for independent entrepreneurs and small business owners, but it's very difficult for independent businesses to pay the lease rate for new commercial construction. And that is another reason why we're saying that this should be optional. Mixed use should be optional for this, particularly since we have two other zoning paths for mixed use. Next slide, please. I think Laura's gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, we started meeting in September. It's been a short timeline. We have met with the redevelopment board once. This is our public engagement meeting, and the next steps, we have to develop dimensional considerations and identify any potential incentives and bonuses, and also I would say round out our list of potential sites, and then draft a proposal to be presented to the redevelopment board. We think we're going to be meeting with the redevelopment board in December and start working on a warrant article if there's agreement on a path forward, and if we think we can realistically have success at this next town meeting. So that's, and then we'll be on, assuming that things go well with the ARB in December and we can move forward, then we will have, we'll be following the usual path to town meeting with warrant article hearings and refining the proposal. So I think with that, we are going to open it up to questions and comments.
If I could just interject, please, I also want people to think about whether there are any sites that you want to be sure we didn't overlook. So as you're considering your questions or comments, please don't hesitate to let us know or ask us, did you make sure you included site A or B? So thank you.
And we'll just take, if you raise your hand, you'll be in the queue, and we can just start with person number one, and we're going to keep it to 2 minutes per comment. Do I see any hands? I do not see any hands yet. Okay, Carl Wagner, you go first.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
That's great. I've been attending most of these meetings, and thank you to the group of you that have been doing them. I've been concerned that I have never seen Ms. Badia, who is the representative that I think in some ways is most important to hear from. She actually lives in low-income housing, and I don't believe she's on this call either, so that's a trouble. I also want to point out that Article 41 did not pass town meeting, as you noted, in 2025, and the ARB also did not support it. There were some major problems. The group was not public. So thank you for this group for being public. It's important for the public to be able to get your agendas, your minutes, and to take part in these meetings as they happen. But something that's really missing is not just the public, but stakeholders beyond you, who I think are earnest housing and affordable housing advocates. There should be stakeholders representing town finances, schools and services, advocates for commercial areas, such as those that might be losing parking or have business affected if businesses are removed for these places. So I really think at this point, you should be involving a huge list of stakeholders, not just yourselves and people who want affordable housing. The problem is this is not an implementation committee. It's a committee to decide should Arlington have such a thing as an affordable housing overlay. And I'm concerned to see that you're proceeding as if Article 41 had asked you to implement this. So that's what I'll say. Thank you.
We have no power to implement anything. Only town meeting can adopt the rules. Thank you for your comment. Winnell?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your work in this really challenging, complex pursuit. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. The first is that this doesn't necessarily seem like an overlay because you are looking at discrete sites. So in a way, it seems a little bit more like spot zoning, which I know is a pejorative term, but I just wanted to make that observation. It seems like it could be multiple sites all over town that are not necessarily contiguous. One thing I would also note is that I hope that the committee will be very observant of what is there now. Zavid mentioned Dudley Street, and it is a mix of residential and light industrial uses. And the residential that is there is mostly lower priced and quote unquote naturally affordable housing. So it would really be a shame to displace those folks as things get built. And I do understand the constraints about trying to include commercial in these projects in terms of funding and how that would all work out. But I do also hope that we won't both disincentivize commercial development and also take up spaces that might at some point be available for commercial development. And finally, my question is, besides Russell Common, are any of the sites that your scout identified owned by the town?
No. I do not.
Okay.
know.
Okay.
No, are owned by the town.
Okay. My understanding is that would be a significant draw for a developer because it would indicate that they would have a very willing seller and site, and that it would be a lot less hurdles for them. So all right. Well, those are my comments and my questions. And again, thank you all.
And thank you for your comment.
Thank you. And I do know, just for your awareness, the sites I mentioned on Dudley Street are not currently residential, so they wouldn't be displacing current naturally affordable housing there, just for your information. Also, I think you're right that town-owned sites could be attractive. Unfortunately, the town does not have a lot of land that's not already being put to use for open space, schools, etc. Uses that would be unlikely to be discontinued. So I think that's a challenge.
Got it. Thank you.
I suppose the Fox Library site could be considered. And one thing about this is that once you've created the regulations with a zoning, with an overlay district, you can place it on parcels in the future. So at some point, if it looks like there is a town parcel and it would make sense to have this zoning, to use this zoning, I think we'd have to go through a town meeting cycle, but we could place it on, for instance, the Fox Library site.
Thank you.
Okay, do I see any more hands? Is it
Peter?
possible there are no more hands?
No, it's
Oh,
Peter
Peter.
Fiore. Mhm.
Yes, Peter, go
So
ahead.
hi, Peter Fiore. I live in Precinct 2, and some of you probably know I'm a town meeting member. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, so I just want to follow up on that question about the parking lots and the schools. There are some fairly good sized school parking lots. And so I would think you might consider building over those. And when you talk about teachers needing housing, now I'm not saying teachers would want to live at the schools where they work, but they could live over a parking lot at a school where they don't work in Arlington, and maybe housing could be an incentive for the younger teachers that are on those first 5 steps. It could be part of their package, their salary package, or whatever. So I was just curious. I don't think that schools should be necessarily excluded. I'm not advocating for it, but I'm not so sure that's a bad idea. You mentioned the Fox Library, and if that does come up, I'm not somebody that would support that. It's a library, and there's no parking there, and I would hope we would develop it as a library. But anyway, so thank you for this meeting and for allowing public engagement. Thank you.
thank you. Andrew Greenspan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
I want to thank the committee for doing the groundwork on looking at potential sites. I just had a couple of comments, some in response to what some other folks said. Just for frame of reference, the motion to commit did specifically say that they would draft proposals for the proposed zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments. So this is part of the charge of the committee, like doing outreach to all of us and the town, and then coming up with proposals that the ARB can approve or not, or support, and or then it goes to town meeting. So that's sort of the context of all this. The other thing I sort of want to bring to mind with people that has been mentioned before is the town, it is difficult to find spaces for this affordable housing overlay, but the town meeting, I think, and town residents have said that they want to figure out ways to have more affordable housing in town. So we need to find space for it. And I just want to say that we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Insofar as if we want more affordable housing in town, we're going to need to put it on some parcels in town. What those will be, we're still trying to figure out. But there's either residential land or there's existing commercial land. It has to go somewhere. That's all.
thank you. Thank you. Alan Jones?
I think you're on
You're on
mute,
mute.
Ellen.
And I'm going to start you over. You're at, okay, great. Do this.
Can't hear you yet, Alan. Okay, we'll come back to Alan, I guess, Laura.
Okay. Sarah, is there anything you can do? No, he's not muted on your, you're on mute.
Of course, I'm on mute. I think Alan was unmuted. He's just having an audio difficulty.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we can move to Elizabeth.
Yes,
while
Elizabeth.
he works on that.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm really glad that you had this public meeting tonight. I did not fully understand the financial implications of the funding for affordable housing. I know I've heard it talked about, but it was a great explanation. I can understand why you're focusing on these larger projects so that they're more viable. But Alan, can you mute? Thank you.
I guess the sound's getting through now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. That was explained well. But one thing I don't understand is how these large projects that would be at certain places that you've identified would work with an overlay. So that's one question. And the other question I have is, how does the Affordable Housing Trust Fund work with what you've got planned?
Do you want to
Laura, do you want to take it, or do you want me to take it?
go
I've
ahead?
got two questions, and I don't know who wants to field them.
Yeah, so the basic idea with the overlay is that there might be a site that today, like the size of a residential building you could build there might be pretty small, and so it wouldn't be large enough to build a building that would qualify for the LIHTC funding that would be able to get funded, and so either then like no one would build a new building there, or maybe a for-profit developer that had different funding constraints would build, a condo development there or something that would be mostly market rate. An overlay district could say that if you're doing a 100% affordable building, you could build to 5 stories instead of 3. That's just hypothetical. We haven't worked out the details yet. Or that you might be able to, provide a smaller amount of parking that leaves more room for units. There's a number of sort of zoning, what we'd call zoning incentives, that could allow for more units to be made on the same property, that then might increase the number of units that could be built enough to qualify for LIHTC funding, or other funding sources. So that would sort of provide an incentive that would make the an affordable housing development pencil out more. And then because an affordable housing development would be able to build more units than a for-profit, that might make it easier for an affordable housing developer to be able to compete with a for-profit developer if a current property owner is selling. So that's, I think, a lot of the value of an overlay district is making it more likely that a building with more units could be built if it was 100% affordable. In terms of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, that's one. Many affordable housing developments have funding from multiple sources. So LIHTC is often providing the majority of the funding, but often there needs to be some funding that comes from other sources as well. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund could be one source there. So they may be able to cover the gap to make the funding work out for a particular development that wasn't able to get enough funding from other sources. Or they might be able to provide some initial funding that would be needed to pay for, architects and so on to make a proposal that would then qualify for grants once that proposal, was crafted, which might take some startup money, etc. So those are ways that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund could allow the town to help make projects feasible that otherwise might not quite get over the line, if that makes sense.
So thank you, David. I'm the Affordable Housing Trust Fund's representative on the Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee, so I can add a few things there. One of the things that is in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund's 5-year plan is to encourage the town to have a predictable path to zoning. For affordable housing developments that have a chance of providing a lot of enough units to get funded. Right now, the only way really to permit a large development in Arlington is through 40B, which is, I would say, from the developer's perspective, not a predictable path. 40B developments have a lot of challenges, a lot of they're subject to a lot of legal challenge, which means a lot of risk. I would say from the town's perspective as well, the town doesn't have as much control over a 40B. That's part of the whole point of 40B, right? And we don't get that much affordability. So providing an affordable housing overlay allows the town to say, this is the kind of housing we would like to see if you want to come to Arlington and build affordable, 100% affordable. You'll have this type of path to zoning. You know, I think we're looking for some kind of a as of right, kind of along the lines of MBTA communities with their site plan review. And the idea is that that provides a predictable path, which lowers risk, which makes it more likely that housing will get built that affordable housing will get built in Arlington. And again, it has the potential to give the town more say about what that housing looks like and to get more affordability for the density that comes with it. That's all.
By more affordability, more units, more
Correct.
affordable units.
More
Right.
affordable units, not
There's-
25% of the development, but 100% of the development, and not affordable at 80% of area median income, but affordable to the most needy in our town, which currently 40B developments aren't required to serve.
Right.
Thank you again for all your work on this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Alan, your turn, but you're on mute.
Yes. Is
Great.
that working now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll echo everybody else. Thanks for all your work on this. And as you can imagine, when anyone talks about proposals to town zoning or development or anything, I always think about, oh, how's this going to affect town finances? So it's probably preliminary at this point. I didn't see any slide about, the financial impact on the town in general, but I just encourage you, if you come to a proposal at a town meeting, just make sure there's some sort of financial model developed that says, does this make the structural deficit worse, or does it relieve it, or whatever? I mean, a lot of factors about obviously property taxation and costs of the town, educational costs, school enrollment, things like that have to be factored in. So I just want to make sure that's considered.
Thank you. Was there anyone else who had a comment or question? Going once, going twice. I guess we will adjourn the meeting then.
Can I just mention that we are planning on doing some sort of survey in the future to gather broader public feedback. So I encourage everyone to this meeting to be on the lookout for that, and also to make sure that your neighbors, people in your precincts, are aware of what's going on. Encourage them to watch the recording if they're interested and learn more about it, because we definitely love to get more feedback either from the survey or via email or via attendance at our future Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee meetings, the schedule for which is on the town website, because we'd like to hear from as many people as possible.
Sarah, can you save the comments, the chat, so that we can make that part of the record?
Yep, I have the comments saved. As for those that may not have been aware, we are recording this video. So, we can post this online along with the slide deck that will be on the website. So, feel free to share it with other folks who might be interested. At the end of the slide deck, I do have my contact information there. Since I have a town email address, I don't know if others wanted to be contacted as well, but by all means, if you have questions, you can get them to me and I can bring them up to the committee. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who came tonight, and
Thank you very much, everyone.
encourage everyone to run over to the NZAP forum now. Please, Net Zero Action Plan update, hurry.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Laura.
Night.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, David. Thanks, Maxwell.